I would say being mentally consistent every day, being the same every day, mentally consistent, out there, doing it every day, that's what gets you success. And making it quite clear to every agent you talk to what you want to buy. Because if you say, oh, we buy anything, you'll get nothing. You need to be very clear what you want to do and how you want to do it. And you need to be able to try and look after them by paying them a finder's fee when they find you something.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Airbnb Nomads podcast. And on this week's Property Education Masterclass, I'm bringing to you my biggest guest today. Now, if you're in property, if you read about property, if you love to watch about property, you will know about my guest today, Mr. John Howard. He is one of the UK's most successful and influential commercial property investors. And in this episode, we talk about how he started at 18 years old in his family's estate agency to where he is now, building some of the UK's biggest commercial property developments, with his last one consisting of over 150 apartments. And his next one is even bigger. Guys, there's so much wisdom in this episode. John really keeps it real and talks about what you really need in order to be successful in today's property market. Guys, on that note, if you get inspired by this episode, if this information helps you to move forward and grow your own property business and take those first steps to building your entrepreneurial journey, then I would ask you to please follow the show and leave us a review. It helps us so much, I can't tell you. Also, if you've got any questions about property or about service accommodation, pop those questions in the review. We'll pull that out and read it in our midweek podcast, the Airbnb Nomads Toolbox. Until then, settle in. This is a long episode, but it had to be because there's so much incredible information to pack in. Get comfortable. This is a great episode. John is genuinely one of the nicest and most genuine guys I've ever met. I can't wait for you to hear it. Here we go. John Howard, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Mate, let me say, first of all, I am honoured and privileged that you are here today. I feel very, very grateful that you're willing to give us your time. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
No problem.
John, you are arguably one of the most successful and, biggest developers in the UK. You've sold and purchased over 4,000 homes in your career that I'm reading here, which is absolutely incredible.
Probably nearly 4.5 now, but yeah.
Nearly 4.5,
yeah, something like that.
Even more impressive.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you've done. You've got your fingers in lots and lots of pies that we're going to get into.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely fascinated. You've got your TV thing going on. You've got your training thing. You're actually on the ground doing lots of developments actually, day to day, which is, you just got so much going on. I want to get into all of it. Where I want to start is I want to go back and find out, how does the mindset kind of grow to get to where you are today? Where did you start off and how did property kind of come into your life from an early age?
Well, I was very fortunate, and not everyone is as fortunate as me. I do appreciate that. And I've got great respect for people who have come from, literally nothing and made a lot of money in property or any other business whatsoever. So my father was a greengrocer. And when he was 60 years old, he decided that he wanted to be an estate agent in the same town, which is a bit tricky because one minute you're selling vegetables and then on the Friday and then on the Monday you're valuing houses. Yeah. Bit tricky. And in those days, they're like one man or one woman bands really, in as much that it was a very small business with a secretary. That was it. So he went to become an estate agent. And I was about 10 years old at the time. And I used to cycle round. If I saw a for sale board, I used to tell him about it. I used to get 50 pence, and then he'd go and try and get it on the market. And funnily enough, we own 5 estate agencies in Norfolk under the Finer Country brand now, and we still do the same thing. I don't cycle round, of course, and I don't get 50 pence. But we have, our listers, if you like, one of their jobs is to what we call door knock, which is to go around, work out who's got what for sale and say, look, can we sell it for you instead of them? Right. So we still do it today. So, estate agency is a pretty basic business, not too difficult. And in the old days, and this is interesting from the point of view that someone asked me the other day, a friend of mine, in Ipswich, where I was based, there was probably about 10, 15 young entrepreneurs looking to duck and dive, make some money. None of us went to university. None of us were very bright, and none of us had much qualifications. And I think the problem these days with a lot of people is that too many go to university, in my view. But anyway, going back to what you were saying, asking. So I used to help out a little bit. In those days, you used to have to hold the measuring tape, of course, because you didn't have the digital, measures. So I used to go around quite a few houses with him and measure up with him in the holidays and so on. And then when I was 17, I left school because I could drive, learn to drive. My father had been in hospital for 4 months, so there really wasn't a business to go back to. But we did lettings, we did insurance, we had an agency for the Leeds Permanent Building Society, which you can't believe now that someone would let someone loose with no training to take people's money in and pay it out, and my God, what a mess. We did insurance as well, in those days, but it was a great grounding. And the better grounding than all that was that we weren't doing very well, because when you learn far more when things are tough than when things go well. And in every property development, any property developer, you show me a property developer that's never lost any money, I'll show you a liar. You said some very kind things to me to start with, some of which is true and some is not true. We've all got developments which haven't gone very well and have lost money. We all have.
Not according to social media.
Not according to social media.
Gurus never lose.
The gurus never lose. Well, in fact, that's a great saying, isn't it? I like that. I'm going to try and use that. I wish it was true, but it's not true. And anyone going into the property industry has to go in with their eyes open and realise that it's a business. There is risk. We try and de-risk as much as possible. It is risk, but it can be very, very good. You can make a lot of money, but you can also lose a lot of money if you don't know what you're doing. And that's the bit that I believe some educators don't get over to there. No, exactly.
John, I want to take you back to something that you just said, which is really, really interesting to me, and I believe it wholeheartedly. And it's coming back to the education thing and the fact that so many kids these days, they're going to university, they're told they almost have to go to university, they have to build up this huge debt. And then a lot of the time, these young people will come out of university with all the degrees, out the yin yang, and they end up working in Costa Coffee because the competition, if everybody's got a degree, it's kind of meaningless. What's your thoughts around that? I know you just kind of touched on that, but if you could talk a little bit more around it. And also, I'm also interested in what you said about the fact that you was kind of a bit of a school dropout. You didn't really have any desires to go into further education. You counted yourself as not necessarily...
didn't qualify to go into any further education.
You counted yourself as not being very intellectual.
No, absolutely.
And there's a common trait here. All of the big players that are doing phenomenal things today, the Alan Sugars, all these people, the Richard Bransons, yourself... Very similar story. Dropped out of school, couldn't get on with learning, with authority, with that part of growing up. So can you just kind of talk a little bit around that, about how you maybe felt that you was different at a young age?
Well, first of all, I stammered badly. So I lost my stammer when I was 19, 20, I suppose. And when I started work, I wouldn't make a phone call. I didn't like receiving one either. So it's a bit of a problem, especially when at 17 years, 4 months, I was running the business because my father went back into hospital. So I was running it with a lady called Mrs. Leader, who was the secretary. Mrs. Leader used to give me spelling tests in the morning, lessons in the morning, because she said my spelling was so bad, which she couldn't believe. Anyway, you can't make it up really, can you? So I think the fact that you don't know what you're going to do and how you're going to make money for me was a massive inspiration to get out and do something. And it either comes naturally to you or it doesn't. And I think if you like anything, if you force it, one, you're probably never going to enjoy it, whatever you do. And I always say with property, there's lots and lots of different ways of making money out of property. It's not for me at my, I do a few seminars. It's not for me to dictate to you what you want to do. It's for me to support you and help you and show you the bits that can go wrong and the bits that can go right. And I've got a friend who's got 2,600 lock-up garages. Bloody boring bloke, to be fair. But he makes good money out of it. And, that's an example. So whatever you want to do in property or any life, you need to be enthusiastic for it. If you're not enthusiastic, you're not going to do a good job. You know, me do HMOs, I just can't think anything worse. And I wouldn't do a good job if I was, you know, dealing with HMOs. In our day, they were called bedsits, by the way, and we used to have 50p coin meters.
Yep.
But
they've changed.
And I used to manage a whole load of them at one point when, you know, from the estate agency. So
do you think that if you were, you know, more smart, clever at school, however that's...
Yeah, well, you go to university, wouldn't you, Alex? And then you go from there, you get a really good job, and eventually you perhaps get introduced into property. I mean, there's so many aspirational people now who have been to university, who have done very well in their business, or you know, very educated, that come into property. The problem I find with some of them is that they overanalyze them because they're very bright.
Yeah, exactly.
They overanalyze everything. Whereas if you're not very bright, it's either black or white. You're doing it or you're not doing it. Now, there's some deals that I shouldn't have done, and there's other deals I should have done. So you don't always get it right. And a great friend of mine who's hugely much more successful than me, I asked him the other day. He's a big commercial developer, and he does things. He builds things like, you know, Marks and Spencers and things. And I do a few joint ventures on residential because he knows nothing about residential. He's absolutely hopeless on residential. So anything gets part residential, he rings me up and says, "What am I meant to do with it?" And I said to him, honestly, how many deals that you do are successful out of 10? He said 7. Straight away, 7. He said two others are, hopefully we get our money back, and 1 is a complete bloody disaster. Yeah. And I think if you do 7 out of 10, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good average. So what is it, John, that you would say? 'Cause I'll tell you why I'm asking these questions. Everyone who sits opposite me here, right? They're maybe not at your level quite yet, but they're on their way.
Yep.
Right? Maybe they're, you know, I've interviewed some...
Probably a lot younger.
Well, I was going to say, I've interviewed...
Thanks for that.
Not as good looking.
Of course not, no. But luckily it's a podcast, isn't it?
Yeah. I've interviewed some people recently that are in their kind of mid-20s.
Yes.
And they're doing phenomenal things. And you can tell by the way that they think and the way that they're taking action and the dedication, commitment, the grind, they're going to get there. And a similar thing, they've all kind of dropped out of school, wasn't for them, couldn't do the corporate thing. What is it in your mind that makes, let's say you and someone else who's been to university has, you know, a PhD in this and that, and you walk in, you look at the same deal and they go, "Oh, you know, we need to think about this and maybe that couldn't work," and and you're like, you know what, that's going to work. And you just have it in the gut, and you know, and you go out and you get it done, and you make the money. What is that difference between being book smart and being, I don't know, I'll call it like world smart, streetwise?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it, and not completely, is education.
If you love to travel like me and you understand the power in escaping the money for time exchange trap, but you just don't know how to do it, then building an Airbnb consultancy business could be exactly what you have been looking for. Right now in the UK, there is a completely untapped opportunity through helping struggling Airbnb hosts by turning around their underperforming properties and generating you huge commission payments in the process. We are going to teach you all of the tools and all of the techniques that we've learned over the last 5 years through building our very own multiple 6-figure Airbnb business, arming you with everything that you need to swoop in and save the day. Minimal startup costs, 0 risk, and almost unlimited potential. Sound good? Welcome to the Airbnb Consultant. Contact us through any of the channels included in the studio notes to get the conversation started.
If you're very educated, you can go and get a good job. You don't need to take risks. You've got to have a real passion to want to do what we do. If you can be a barrister, or if you can be a doctor, or if you can, of course, a lot of doctors morph into property later on in life because they've got this surplus cash. So between the age of 20 and 30, I did very well. The market was strong, and a little knowledge is dangerous, but not when the market's going up. Because when it's going up, you can be as ballsy as you like because you're going to be all right. It's when things plateau or start going down, you really need to know what you're doing. And that is the difference, I think, between the successful developers and the ones that aren't. I've got friends who, when the going's good, they've got a helicopter, they've got the Rolls Royces, you know, they fly in to play tennis or something ridiculous, you know, and when the market goes, they go too. they tend to bounce back, those people, because they've got this amazing ability to bounce back. That would scare me to death. So I've always been, although I'm described as a bold developer, if you like, by some people, I do always try and de-risk a deal, whereas some people just take a blind punt at it. We're not like that. And that's why you could argue we haven't made as much money as some other developers. Having said that, we're still here. I paid the school fees. I'm still here. I paid my tax. And I've got a bit left to pass on, which I'm trying to do at the moment, which is bloody hard giving money away, by the way, giving assets away.
It is in the UK.
It's really difficult. And this Labour government are going to make it even harder.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we can touch on that.
Good.
I think what we're talking about here is important. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I don't want young people who maybe don't fit into that square box of being good at exams and leaving school with straight A's to feel like they can't get ahead in life. Because I almost feel like if you leave school with nothing, kind of like you touched on a second ago, it's almost like an opportunity to prove yourself, to go out and hustle and create something. Because if you're unemployable and you can't go in and get a job in the city or wherever, and you have to find a way, there's a good chance, if you've got the right mindset combined with that work ethic, that you're going to make shit happen.
Alex, absolutely. Most of the people of my generation started off in a estate agency. That's the great grounding. They started off in a estate agency, and then they morphed into doing property deals. Some while they were estate agents, which is a bit tricky, and then they gave up the agency and went full time in property. They all started off at 18 years old in property. That's the difference between then and now. And I think the fear of failure, the feel of not knowing what you're going to do spurs you on. If you can go to university 3 years and sit on your ass and do, I'm not being unkind, 12 hours a week or something for 3 years, find yourself or whatever they call it, and then come out and then you've got a degree and you go and get a job, and you've got no need to be wheeling and dealing.
It's almost a predetermined...
Absolutely, actually, you don't need to do that. And to be fair, for some people, it's not for some people. My father was desperately worried about me buying a property. Although he was an agent, he had no idea, really, all due respect to him, how to buy and sell property. And I employ 40 other estate agents at the moment, and not one of them, let me tell you, knows a deal. You'd think they would, but honestly, they don't. They're one-trick ponies. They're very good at what they do, selling houses. But they ring me, so I think I've got a deal, John. It's not a deal. They haven't got a clue.
I think
they're good at what they do. So it is horses for courses.
It's a common misconception, isn't it, that the agents are property professionals?
Bloody clueless, most of them, bullshitters. You've got to remember about estate agents. If you're going to employ a estate agent, you want one that is ballsy, that is breezy, happy, positive, because you want the best price possible. And when an estate agent opens their curtains in the morning in their bedroom, it's always a sunny day, and that's how you want them to be. So you can't then criticise them really for being bullshitters, which of course they are. Yeah. They're salespeople,
Yeah, they're salespeople.
They always say to me, everyone likes me. Do they? Yeah, I'm really, really popular. Really, really popular. They all think everyone likes them, and they all say when they join as estate agents, as they say, well, the car doesn't really matter. And then you offer them a car, and they go, oh, well, I had a better car where I wasn't. I want this and I want that. So they're all the bloody same. Yeah. They want a nice car, nice salary. They want to swan around selling houses. Yeah. And if they're good at it, great.
And we say to a lot of our mentees that we work with, after spending a few weeks with us, don't be afraid of walking into an estate agent or a letting agent and having a conversation and feeling confident, because there's a good chance that you know a hell of a lot more than that person that you're talking to in that agency.
What, Alex? I'm very pleased that you tell them that, because I'm sick to death of talking to people, and you go, have you spoken to an agent about what they're worth? No, I've been on the data sites. Well, data sites are all very good. They're useful. But go and bloody talk to a few people.
Have a conversation.
Have a coffee. Buy them a coffee. Talk to, get in, my job is all about connecting with people that I can do business with. It's all about contacts. If you haven't got the contacts, you ain't going to do very well in property on the whole. Yeah. And if you think Rightmove's going to get you a deal, on the whole, not always, because now and again I get proved wrong, of course, but on the whole, you're wasting your bloody time. You need to get out there, find some contacts, and then when a deal falls through, you want to be the person there ringing and saying, John, this has just fallen through. They're desperate to sell it. They'll take this for it. What do you think? Yeah. That's the situation you want to get into.
It's a really, really good point. It's something that we're really hot on. You know, I've said it on here a million times. You can sit in your little comfortable home office and sit on the phone all day long cold calling agents, but you're just one of 1,000 other people that's called that day. When you leave your home office, get dressed, get smart,
get off your bloody arse
get in the agencies
and start using some shoe leather, as they say. Yeah,
knocking on doors, shaking hands, eye contact, confident, having a conversation. Like you said, organised to go in there for a coffee. As soon as you have that phone call and you've got even a tiny bit of rapport with that agent, say, hey, can I come around today? When's your next free appointment? Let's sit down. I'd love to buy you a coffee.
Even now, I go and look at a property that I'm not that interested in order to meet the agent, to network and say, look, we may both want to meet each other, who knows? But, if you've got time for coffee afterwards and have a bit of a laugh with them or whatever. And that is so important. And also you pay them finder's fees. Yeah. So people say to me, well, how do you get a deal when we don't? I said, do you pay 2% finder's fee? No, we don't like paying finder's fee. Well, you won't get any deals then, will you? Yeah. An agent, they're there to make money.
Well, that is something that I want to talk about because I will challenge you on that, but we'll put a pin in that just for a second.
I like a challenge.
I'm sure you do. Your family business, the agency, you trebled that business turnover in 3 years?
Wasn't difficult, Alex. It was absolutely crap. I'll tell you now. We were selling
I'm trying to help you.
We were selling absolutely nothing when I took it over. I changed the name. It didn't have a great reputation. My dad was very, very cautious and very, very tight. He was a lovely man and he was a great greengrocer, but he wasn't a very good estate agent, to be honest.
So he was a greengrocer, had an agency.
But he wanted to do it and he had a bit of money. He said, bollocks to it, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. And it was a tiny little business. And by the time, when I was on my 18th birthday, I bought 2 properties. And my mother lent me the money. And people say, how do you fund deals? If you can get family to help you, that's always the best way, of course. But always make sure that if the family lends you money, you give them the same interest as you would anyone else, because then they'll do it again. My dad was too tight to buy my mum a new kitchen. Right? And he wouldn't lend me the money to do the deal. And there was 2 property developers who we dealt with. And at the rumper end of a deal, like when they got 2 flats left, and these flats were, in those days, what's called sitting tenants. So you couldn't get them out. So I bought them. So I said, well, can I buy them? And they said, yeah, of course you can if you want to, John. So I spoke to the bank manager, who's pretty useless. But in those days, at least you had one. I banked with Coots, and I still don't know who my bloody bank manager is now. That used to take you for lunch and all sorts.
Even with Coots today?
Nothing.
No relationship?
And if you go to Coots in the Strand, they've got a restaurant on the top floor. If NatWest, because it's owned by NatWest, if NatWest customers knew that, they'd do the brains. It's one of the best restaurants in London with the best wine list. And interestingly, I haven't been invited for 4 years, so obviously not doing very well. So anyway, where were we? So
you'll be demoted to the NatWest.
I'm demoted to NatWest now. Yeah. So what was I saying?
Yeah, your father.
Yeah. So he wouldn't lend me the money. He said, no, I don't want you losing the money. So I went to my mother. I said, look, you need a new kitchen. So I can help you provide you. I can provide you a new kitchen, but I need a few grand, and we'll share the profit or whatever we did. And so what I did, I sold the first 2 flats. I sold the first flat to one of the sitting tenants. So I bought it at 50% discount to open market value because they're sitting tenants. I sold it to them for 80%, so they were delighted.
Right.
And we used to do a lot of that in the old days.
Okay.
So they then could sell it on and make 20%. I'd made 30% on my money. Happy days. My mother got her money back. The bank manager was happy. And then she said, she bought a kitchen, by the way. She got a kitchen. And then she said, where's the next deal? And that's how it works. So
just to reflect back at you, maybe something, maybe you do know this, but do you realise that that's not a normal thing that you did then? That
you sound like my wife.
Well,
do you think they realise that's not normal?
No, but what I'm
the
saying,
rules don't apply to you, John, do they? Well, they do apply to me, yeah.
What I'm saying is that highlights a different mindset and an entrepreneurial streak that most people would never even cross their radar to do something like that. I think
fear is probably why some of them would never, absolutely. Some people just don't think like that, and that's absolutely fine. You know, we need doctors, nurses, lawyers, architects. They definitely wouldn't. You know, there's loads of people who support and we need in our lives. And that's absolutely fine. But you do need the odd entrepreneur. You do need the people who can open a factory and employ 200, 300, 400 people. And the problem with going on to Labour now, I'm sure soon, is that if you tax these people too much, guess what? They say, you know what? I don't need to do that. Yeah. I'm going to sit on my yacht or whatever they've got.
I'm off to
Monaco. Dubai is the favourite, isn't it?
Dubai, yeah.
And I'm just going to relax and enjoy myself. I don't need to slog my guts out if they're going to take 60, 70% of my earnings.
Well, I'm no economist, but I know that if you don't support the people who are creating the jobs, then a country can't run. It's most basic ground level. Yeah, but we can touch on that. So you sold the agency. Your father's.
So I bought it off. What happened was when I was 19, my father and I. We didn't get on very well in the end. We did got on personally, but business-wise, I wanted to spend some money. He didn't want to. Blah blah blah. My poor mother was in the middle. And in those days, she used to go home for lunch. Shut the office, lock the office, and walk home for lunch. You can't make it up now. You can't believe it now, I know. But honestly, and we didn't have things like mobile phones either, by the way, everyone. So, and we used to get home, used to be rowing at lunchtime, because I wanted to spend a bit of money. He didn't want to spend any money. Anyway, he eventually at 19, he wasn't very well again, and he went back into hospital. So I was running the business again on my own, and he decided to sell the business. So he sold it for 5,000 quid or something to another estate agents who wanted me to remain as manager.
Was that a reasonable amount of money then?
Yeah, not really. It really was a very poor. It wasn't a very good business, to be quite blunt. Right. But the great thing, like I said earlier, when you're struggling, you learn far more. So what happened was the guy wanted to keep me on. So I thought, well, if he wants to keep me on, I really very early on, when I was in after a few months of working, I realised property buying and selling is where the money is. The estate agency is all right, but to be honest with you, it
was more of a job.
More of a job. Buying and selling and making money out of property is what I wanted to do. So in the end, the sale fell through, and I said to my father, look, sale's fallen through. I'll give you the same amount of money. I phased it over 2 years or something. And he went, well, I don't want you to fail, and I still help you. I said, look, I really don't need your help. Please don't help me.
Just let me crack on.
I need to freshen it all up, which is what I did. And then I sold it for 40 odd grand or 35 grand to them. I brought a manager in who his parents had some money. So I brought him thinking that they probably wanted back
some investment
and they did. And that's when I met Mr. Boyce.
Mr. Boyce.
Mr. Boyce. And you called him Mr. Boyce as well. Now, Mr. Boyce was a gentleman farmer. I deal with his son still now. We work together. We do deals together still after 38 years. And he came along and backed me. So he was doing deals in London and bits and bobs, and he decided he wanted to do deals all over the UK. So he backed me. I met him through an architect, and he was probably in his 50s then. And I could call him Robert, but everyone else had to call him Mr. Boyce, and he was scary.
Sounds scary. I'm scared already. I'm just hearing about him.
Very successful. Used to buy and sell farms, things like estates and things like that. And then he started to think of the holiday property bond, which still goes today, which has had about 400 or 500 million invested into it.
Wow.
So he's a proper player. And
so he had the brains, but he needed some young energy behind it.
And his son Andrew was just failing as becoming a chartered surveyor, dismally failed in his exams. So he had a bit of spark about him as well. And so we did the commercial stuff together with his son, the commercial properties we bought, and all the residential stuff I did with Mr. Boyce himself. And we built up quite quickly, buying tower blocks, refurbishing them, selling them to first-time buyers, till about 1992 when the market crashed.
The question that's screaming out at me here, John, is, and we spoke about it just before we came on, in today's world, very, very few people, I've spoken to maybe a handful on here, that get into the property world, whether it's service accommodation, whether it's flipping, whatever it is. Very few go down that road without a significant amount of training, right? From whatever training center, listening to podcasts, reading books, educating themselves, slowly transition, reading your books, of course.
Thank you for the plug.
Only reading your books. How did you, I mean, you're sitting here saying, buying tower blocks and doing this and doing that. How did you know how to do this stuff?
We didn't. It's the truth. We didn't, Alex. We were young. We were ambitious. We wanted to make money, and of course, if you tell people now that, just want to make money, of course, they're, no. We want to help people. We want to do all this bullshit. The truth is you need to live and you want to have a nice lifestyle. And the ones in Dubai don't say that, do they? They say, great, I've made a load of money. I live in Dubai. So the rest of us are plugging away here, paying the tax. So, no, I think in those days there was no education. None. The education was the estate agency. That was where you learned your trade. You learned how to value property, what it was worth, you learned how to deal with people, which is so important.
I think
so important.
I think you just hit the nail on the head there. That's what's changed.
That's what's changed, Alex, isn't it? We've done it. We've sorted it.
It is. That's the answer to it all.
Let's do a podcast about that.
We've cracked it.
We've cracked it. Too much education. Yeah. And people are going to university that, it shouldn't do. There's so many jobs, great jobs for sparkies, plumbers, bricklayers, these roofers. These guys can earn 50 to 100 grand a year. They're not doing that on a white collar job. And we need someone like, I think someone said that we need 30,000 more bricklayers in this country to get to the targets that Labour want to get to. They've got no bloody chance.
No. It's very, very true. But what you just said about having the confidence, it's a people's business. And now through technology, through everybody communicating via phone, WhatsApp, this and that, people are losing the ability to walk into a room and to build a relationship, and potentially a deal comes off the back of that, like you just said.
I think, Alex, it's much harder to make what I call proper money today than it ever has been in property. And the reason is that in the old days, unless you saw the for sale board yourself, and we used to see a for sale board, we took it down. Don't want anyone else to see it, did we? So, you had contacts, but we bought all over the UK, so it's slightly different. But I mean, to find these deals was difficult. So for everyone else to find deals, it was almost impossible. Now, of course, everything's on social media, Rightmove, and all these other social media. We very rarely buy a deal that hasn't already been sold to someone else and fallen through, or isn't with a receiver, because we don't pay market price. I've got 3 golden rules. They are this. Thanks for asking. They are this. One,
what's your 3 golden rules, John?
Thank you. They are the following. If you can't sell the property that you've just bought, doing nothing to it at a profit, you shouldn't buy it, because you need to be buying at a discount. Someone else, and there should be enough profit in for the next person as well. If you can't buy it, refurbish it and sell it and make a good profit, you shouldn't buy it. And if you can't refurbish it, refinance it and let it, you shouldn't do it. Now, the third one is harder to do because interest rates now. Yeah. So to get your cash back, you need to get your dealing money back to go again. Even if it means you're going to take a loss, get rid of it, get your dealing money back, and stop banging on about the money you've lost, and get out there and make your money on the next one, because you won't make the same mistake again.
Do all money out deals exist?
Very, very hard. I think you can do so if you're buying quantity. So if you're buying one property, I think it's impossible. If you're buying 3 or 4, like a flat, 4 flats in a block, sell 3, keep 1, refinance, move, that sort of thing you can probably do. But I think to do it, the buy-to-let's finished, in my view. Finished. Sorry, anybody listening that's a buy-to-let. Well, I've got some, but I can't sell mine because I'll pay too much tax. You can't sell yours for the same reason, probably. But I mean, you wouldn't go into it now because you've got to put so much cash in. And it sits there for how many years? Because you've got no, at the moment, property prices aren't going up. The only reason for doing buy-to-lets really in the south of England is for capital growth. Yeah. If there's no capital growth, what's the bloody point? You might as well have your money, deal it, buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell. And when you want to have an easy life, then guess what? Go and buy a load of buy-to-lets and borrow 50% on them, because that's all you can borrow, and bugger off to Dubai.
To be honest, the thing that worries me is not so much the fact that it's hard to make money, it's the issue with tenants, and now with Labour in power, and we all want tenants to have a safe, secure home to live in, and to be able to create a beautiful home for themselves and their family, and to know that they're safe there. But when it swings too much in their favour, and when people start falling into rent arrears, not paying the bills, not looking after the property, and you still can't get them out.
Well, Alex, you're far kinder than me. Far kinder than me. My view is this.
You seem like a very kind man.
Well, at times. My view is this: if I own a property and I want to sell it for the most I can get, I need to have it vacant.
Yeah.
And if I'm not allowed to get it vacant by the government, I think that's absolutely disgusting. And that is, I'm afraid, is what's going to be happening.
Yeah.
I think in October, when the rules come out about Section 21, she's already said, Rayner, that there will be no negotiation on exemptions, if you like, for now. Whether she'll get away with that, or whether she'll be told to get back in a box by the financial authorities, because don't forget, if you've got a property that you can't get vacant, it's worth 30% less than it is vacant. And you go from selling to 100% of the market to 2% of the market.
For sure.
Now, in the 1980s, the good news is we made a lot of money out of those types of flats and houses, because you couldn't get them vacant. Until Margaret Thatcher came along and created the short-hold tenancy, that's exactly how we were. So anybody who had wanted to sell quickly, couldn't get the tenant out, guess what? They sold to people like us.
Yeah, at a big discount.
At a big discount. And that eventually will have to happen again.
Because I do think it's wrong. I had
So that's good news.
Great news. Thanks for lightening my day.
That's okay.
One property that comes to mind, I've got a few properties up in Manchester, and touch wood, all of my tenants are very happy and pay their rent, all the rest of it.
Yes.
And I do my part. If there's a problem, I fix it straight away. It works both ways. But one tenant, started falling behind on the rent, couldn't keep up with it, went to the council, and the council just said, you know what, stay put. Stay put. The landlord can't do anything. He's got to go through the courts. It was 8 months, I think, before I could.
Do you know what I do with people like that? Offer them money to go.
Yeah.
Because I know it sounds absolutely mad.
Yeah.
Absolutely mad. But you say, look, you've got a problem. You can't pay the rent. This property's too expensive for you, clearly. Why don't I help you with some expenses to go? And then you can find a cheaper property. And people go, well, I would never do that. They owe me
Goes
money.
against my
blah, blah, blah.
morals.
Who cares? At the end of the day, pride becomes before a fall. And if you need to get it vacant to go again, and whatever you need to do, you need to do it.
I'm glad you said that was your go-to, because I thought you was going to say you put a balaclava on and got a baseball bat and round there with the boys.
I've got to tell you a story. Many, many years ago, and I was appalled. Many, many years ago, we had a sitting tenant in a house, and I gave him, I think it was in those days, £2,000 to go. He was happy to go. So
That's
he
a lot
left.
of money, no? Back then?
Yeah, he left. In 1850 or so, it was. So he left. And the builder was going in the following day to start work. So the builder rings me and says, we've got a problem. No, we had a problem. I said, what was that? Well, the tenant reappeared. Although he signed documents saying he's left without any due harassment and anything else, which we've got to sign.
Yeah.
He went back.
Moved back in.
Yeah. He said, but don't worry, I smashed every window in the house. He's not there now. I thought, oh my God. So then I had the council on, of course, saying, what have you done? Harassment, this, that, and the other. So we had to explain the situation, and they were very sympathetic in the end to our cause. But, you don't need that.
No, that's
But that's the only time, to be fair, in many, we've done it many, many times, a few times that we've had a problem.
I can understand it. I can understand people going down that road, though. I wouldn't condone it, but I can understand it.
Well, it's frustrating. The one thing I would say, in those days, of course, you could go find another property. Nowadays, you probably can't do that. So it's a bigger problem. To get vacant possession in that way by paying people to leave is going to be harder.
They got nowhere because they've got nowhere to go.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree. John, I got so much here that I want to get through, and I'm trying to keep it in order because
we're jumping all over the place.
Well, you've done so much stuff, but 25 years old, you become the director of Cambridge United Football Club.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. How on earth does that happen at such a young age?
Well, every football director. Anybody who's involved in football and wants to become football director is probably a frustrated footballer. And I was a reasonable footballer. I wasn't really good enough. I had a bad back, played in goal, was okay, 2 left feet.
Glass eye.
I'll be no good nowadays because you need people that can use their feet more than the hands. Anyway, so I thought, well, I'd like to be involved in football. I like to get more involved. I like to be a director of a football club. So I sort of contacted Cambridge United, and they said, well, they went along and a few games, this, that, and the other. Bought some shares, and quite quickly they asked me to go on the board. So I went on the board. In those days, you didn't need to put very much, relatively, you still put some money in, but not the sort of money that you'd obviously need today. To give you an idea, Cambridge United last year lost 1.7 million, I think. An Ipswich Town that got promotion to the Premiership the year before, when they got promotion out of the same league Cambridge United were in, lost 20 million getting out, and they had gates of 25,000. So I mean, the sort of money involved is crazy, and the difference between a small club like Cambridge United and Ipswich Town is massive. The gates are 4 times bigger for a start, 5 times bigger. So when I joined the board, a few of us, 1 or 2 people joined at the same time. But the great thing about a football club in those days is that you have all local businessmen from different backgrounds. So we had a coal merchant, we had the builder, we had the accountant, and you've all got to get on and work together. And of course, board meetings went on for, I used to call them boring meetings, because they're going on for like 4 or 5 hours. You talk about the price of burgers in the stands, and more than you would about the football. The manager would be waiting outside to come in. He'd be waiting out 2 or 3 hours while we talk about burgers. I said, we better get the manager in. Oh yeah, he's outside, isn't he? Yeah. So anyway, we had great success because we went from the bottom of Division 4 in those days to the playoffs for the Premiership, which was an amazing achievement. And people ask me, who have you sold? What have you done in terms of selling? You seem to be a natural salesman. I said, well, I've sold horses because I'm into horses. I've sold property, and I've sold people.
Sorry, the last one was?
Sold people. So I've sold.
I don't know if we want to talk about this on the podcast, John.
Well, we sold Dion Dublin to Man United. We sold, and of course Dion Dublin now is on Homes Under the Hammer. So it's
I remember Dion Dublin. Yeah.
Yeah. Sold for £1 million to Man United. So we sold a lot of young good players in those days, and then I was there 18 years. After 16 years, we got into big financial trouble. I eventually bought the ground with my partner, which didn't go down very well. And we had lots of protests and hassle, really, over it all. But we rented it back on a lease back for 50 years to the club to protect the club. The club went into receivership. I stayed on. Most of the other directors I worked with for 15 years left. I stayed on. We got it out of receivership very quickly. We gave some rent free to help that happen. And then a few years later, we sold it on to Grosvenor Estates, who thought they could relocate the club, a subsidiary of Grosvenor Estates. They couldn't relocate the club. And eventually, last year, the club bought the ground back.
So when you bought it, was your plan to try and develop it, or was
no,
it
just for the income?
For the income.
We paid £2 million for it, and the income was 200 grand, so 10% return, 10% yield. And at the time, interest rates were relatively low, so that was quite good. And then we sold it on at a profit 5 years later. Yeah.
So a couple of questions around that. Obviously, 25, you was still young.
Yeah, I used to come off the team bus and they used to say, can I have your autograph? I said, you don't want my autograph. I'm not running around today. I'm sitting in the director's box.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. So was that decision, was that through a genuine passion for the club and for the job and for your love of football, or was it a wizard move to build your brand, grow your profile, and be networking with other people that could help you grow your property business?
I think the building brand is a new thing, really.
Right.
In those days, you're showing your age there. You're very young.
Not as young as I was.
In those, it wasn't about building. Yeah, it wasn't about building brands at all. I love football. I will still do. I love football. I love watching football. Love playing football. And
see, I'd have you down as a cricket man.
Well, I played a bit of cricket as well, but football was always been my passion and still is really. So to get involved, to be involved in a football club was like, it's like buying a toy shop, It was absolutely or a nightclub even in those days. Absolutely fantastic and exciting. I hardly missed a home and away game in 18 years.
Wow.
A lot of travelling. In fact, when I got married, after 15 years of those, or 14 years or whatever, when I eventually got kicked out, I got into a board meeting one night and no one would talk to me, so I thought there might be a problem. Anyway, and my wife said, "Oh God, you're going to be home every Saturday." So we travelled. I've virtually been to every football club in the UK, every league club just about. I had a fantastic time, and a special time as well, because I don't think many clubs could do what we did now.
It must have been hard to have been taken seriously though at that age.
Well, I suppose you earn the right to be taken seriously by what you say and your actions.
Hey, so was you already relatively successful in property by 25?
Yeah.
So you'd already done a lot of developments.
Yeah.
People knew your face around town.
Yeah, they didn't. I mean, this was Cambridge. I was Ipswich. They didn't know me, but I mean, I bought a country house with 80 acres and all the rest. Had all the trappings of success. But of course, then the recession came in 1990. So I could see it happening. I could see what was happening. So I sold the house and I bought the house I'm in now, which is still nice.
And your father, you've done so well by 25. You've got this manor house with all the land and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
What was he saying?
He was dead.
Oh, he wasn't.
So he wasn't saying anything.
Right. Okay.
So he died when I was 21.
That's unfortunate.
And my brother was 15. So I then had to. My brother got expelled from 3 schools. You won't like me mentioning it again, but he did. So I had to keep going along to these damn schools and try and get him into another school.
Right.
Because he kept.
So you became the father figure, really.
In a way, he probably doesn't see it like that.
Yeah.
But we're good friends, and he's done very well. He's a success. He does self-storage. He's done very well.
Is there any sadness around the fact that your father wasn't around to see you do so well?
Of course, I think so, everyone misses their father, or hopefully they miss their father if their father was a good man, which he was. And yeah, of course, even now, many years later, hopefully he'll be proud of what I've achieved. And actually, it's interesting because we went to private school, and the reason we went to private school is because my grandfather had a shoe shop in Mansfield. And when just after the war, and he had 2 boys come into the shoe shop, and he was so impressed with these 2 boys, they're buying shoes, and they both went to Gresham School in Norfolk, and he vowed that he would save enough money with my grandmother to send his grandchildren to private school, and in a trust, and he only had 1 daughter, thank God. It wouldn't have been possible. And all 3 of the grandchildren went to private school because of what he did. And that was a great benefit to all of us. I mean, I didn't get many qualifications, but hey, it was still good to do. And I set up a education trust for my grandchildren to do the same, because I think that's very, very important. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Couple of questions. How did you learn business?
Well, I think probably
Is it
by
something
making
that's
mistakes, I should think, Alex.
Is it something that's inherently in you, though? Does it come natural to understand these things?
Yeah, I think you know what it's like. I'll tell you what it's like. I think whatever you get and I'm certainly not talented. What I do is pretty basic. If you buy right, if you pay the right money for something, you've got a number of options. You can keep it, you can sell it, you can refinance it. If you get the price wrong, you're in trouble. There's only one thing you can do, that's probably sell it again to try and get some of your money back. So property is a very, very simple business. It's made more complicated, I think, by some of the educators who, for me, specialise in one thing and make out that that's all anyone can do, and the people who they're paying need this need. And I think that's probably slightly wrong. I think some people do, some people don't. I think if you're a natural entrepreneur, and there are many natural entrepreneurs in the UK, you could be selling, you could be buying property, you could be buying and selling anything. That's natural, just like it is. Someone can pick up a golf club and can swing it from day one, hit the ball, eye to ball coordination, be a good footballer. I just think it's that. I think the people coming into it later on in life, who have been educated, if you like we said earlier, very few of them, I think, are natural entrepreneurs, because they've had it knocked out of them in a way by having the education and the sensible, the safe job and everything else. I think for them then to morph at 40, 50 into something different is very unnatural, because you get older, you get more cautious because you don't want to lose what you've got. And by the time you're 40 or 50, you've probably got a lovely family, a lovely house. You're not going to risk all that. Whereas when you're 20, you're down the nightclub 1 minute, yeah? You're buying your first Porsche at 21, 20, whatever it might be. You've got it all going on. It's exciting. Suddenly, you get more popular when you get your first Porsche, don't you, with girls? I noticed that.
Yeah, it's funny that.
Anyway, I shouldn't say that because that would be sexist and we'll get in all sorts of trouble. And by the way, I'm passionate about more women getting into property.
Yep.
And both my daughters are now involved. And, at my seminars, I do get a lot of ladies, which is great because I'm very, very seriously passionate about more women getting into property. But between 20, when you're in your 20s, you can take a chance. You're on your own, you're single, you've got nothing to lose, and you probably don't know that much. You think you know more than you know as well. And if the market's going up, it's not that difficult. The difficulty comes when the market plateaus or when it starts going down. That's when you really earn your money.
Well, I think maybe the difference, you're right to a certain extent, buy below market value, sell it for X, you make Y. It's not that complicated when you say it in those terms.
No.
But I think the difference between you and literally 99.9% of the population that would never come anywhere close to the success that you've had is the self-belief and the confidence and the mindset to actually go out and do it. And I'll always remember watching Dragon's Den with Peter Jones, and he said, someone was saying,
not property elevator then.
Well, it wasn't property elevator, but that's better. But on this particular night, I was stuck watching Dragon's Den. It was really unfortunate. But I remember someone was speaking up, pedestalising Peter Jones, and he said, look, I'm not that great. The only difference between me and you is that when I have an idea, I follow through and take action.
Absolutely.
And most people have a great idea and say, well, that could do there. We can make all this money. And then they turn on Netflix and forget about it.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing, if you're scared of failure, you'll never make any money.
Yeah. So are you scared of losing it all?
Do you know what? That sort of inspires me and keeps me honest and keeps me going, is the fact that I've got to pay tax in January and July. Oh my God, I hope I've paid it. Yeah, I think I have. My accountant sorts it out. So, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think everyone's scared of failure, and that's that's part of the drive. Also, it's the excitement of, I love doing a deal. I love buying and selling. If I didn't have to develop anything, I wouldn't develop a bloody thing. But I have to develop because I can't do enough buying and selling. And quite often you buy a property, you've got a choice. Do you sell it on a bit more, or do you develop it and make a lot more? But that's the choice, hopefully, you've got to make. And so we end up buying a lot of part-finished stock and finishing it. Starting from scratch is a bloody long time, really. So
there's no part of you that wakes up and thinks, you know what, I've been busting my ass doing this for a long time. I've done well. I've got my nice house, got my nice car, got my family. I'm just going to go and play tennis.
No, because I wake up and think, how am I going to make some money today? Where's my next deal? How many deals have I got on the go? Which one's going to work? And of course, you know what? I've had a really tough 6-9 months where nothing really worked. I'm banging away. I've got a few developments which are challenging. They're going to be okay, but they're challenging. All the rest of it. And then suddenly, in the last 2 weeks, the 3 deals I've been working on for 6-9 months have all exchanged at the same time, and I've made some money. And you think, why can't they spread out throughout the year? Yeah? They don't, do they? No. It's amazing.
No.
It's amazing. I spoke to one of the big house builders who is just retiring, a friend of mine, and I said to him, do you have that problem? If you've got like 150 units on the go, 200 units on the go, because they've got thousands on the go, but a year, why do they all end up selling in 3 months and then nothing for 9 months, whatever? And he said, we have the same problem, John.
Like buses.
You can't get it to be consistent. Amazing.
Now, you said something earlier about when people come to you and say, oh, yeah, John, how do I get a deal? And which I understand. But, and I said to you...
Look at an auction catalogue. Get on with it.
Auction catalogue. We can touch on that because I know you've got an auction house.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say to you was people are going to look at you, hugely established, endless amounts of large-scale developments under their belt, you know, big numbers in the bank account and all the rest of it that you can provide to the agents, right? Lots of agents in your little black book that are calling you first. How can people possibly compete when they're trying to break into the development game with people like you? And I had my own little experience, and I was talking to, I had Wendy Brummel on here a couple of episodes ago, commercial property developer. And I said to her, you know, I tried to get involved in the commercial development a little bit. And I went to look at a big nursing home, prime location. I thought this could be great. Didn't have planning.
No.
I'm just starting out. So I went to the agent with, you know, and offered an option. You know,
option.
Yeah.
You're messing around doing that for.
Oh, exactly.
Eh?
And she said, I've got about 30 developers with big bags of cash, all driving Range Rovers, queuing up down the street to buy this thing. Why am I going to waste my time talking about options? Yeah. So they knew that they was going to go and get planning. They've done it a million times before. They know Dave down the planning office who's in their back pocket.
Yeah, well, it's not so easy these days because Dave's probably moved on.
Right. So my point is, what would you say to people who are sitting at home saying, I want to be like you, John, but how the hell do I get started?
Well, I think, first of all, a lot of people seem to want to start at half. I'm not at the top of the ladder. I'm halfway up the ladder, in my view. You know, I've got friends who are far more successful than I am. I'm halfway up the ladder, but I deal with very tricky projects. But a lot of people don't want to start at the bottom. They try and start where we are or slightly under where we are. And that's not really... Okay, now and again someone can pull something off, but it's not very realistic. You've really got to build up a bit. You want to get a bit of a track record and a bit of a reputation. You've got to start somewhere. I accept that. But I think a lot of people do try and start higher up than they really should. You get two sorts. You get the ones with complete blind optimism who tell you that what the development they're going to do is everything's going to sell within 5 minutes and it's all going to be done at a very cheap build cost and everything else. You get those and they're bloody dangerous because you need fear. If you show no fear, if there's no fear, then you're too ballsy. You need to see some fear. You know, you need to be concerned.
You need to have a few sleepless nights.
I think so. And you need to de-risk as much as possible. And I'd show people in my seminars how to do that bit. But then you get the others who are too much the other way. So there's a balance. There's
analysis
some people,
paralysis.
Yeah, there's some people who do service accommodation and do very, very well with it. And they're really good at it. And they probably shouldn't move, and they don't need to move on to anything else, and probably shouldn't do. And you get others that doesn't interest when they want to start doing developments. So, but I do think you've got to be realistic and start. You've got to start somewhere, of course you have, and someone's got to give you a break. But you've got to work for that break. And I understand when people go, well, I option on this, and then I'm going to turn this into this and do this, and I'm going to offer them the money and pay for it 2 years later. That's great on some of the smaller deals and brilliant. But like you said, you go to Savills, Knight Frank, Allsops, and you start talking like that, they're going to blow you out the water. So what the bloody hell are you talking about? It's for sale, you're buying it or not.
Because I may be way off with my thinking here and maybe being a bit pessimistic.
I doubt it.
But if there's a development that has huge potential on Rightmove, you've already bought it. It's gone. So a developer that's ready to go with the money in their pocket has already snapped it up. So, and the reason I'm saying that is because there's lots of courses now that are telling people and I'd love your opinion on this, that you can go from nothing to going and doing a 3-day course, and then you go into the mastermind and you go straight into developments and building on airspace and all the rest of it. And, you're going on Rightmove and you're analysing deals. But surely if there was something that could work on Rightmove, you and the other people in your league have already snapped it up. And the only stuff that's left is the dog shit.
Well, probably not in August, because all the big developers in the south of France in August, so they all go bugger off. That's why there's no auctions in August, because no one's about. All the big players are not about. So you can find the odd deal in August, because none of the bigger ones are about. So I'm always scrapping around looking for.
It's a good time to be searching.
And same at Christmas, because no one's interested. What was the question?
It was really just about. What do you think about people who are going straight into development?
Yeah.
Is that an option?
Well, I get a lot of people on my seminars who have got money, have been successful, and who want to pivot to development and move up from what they're doing. And that's very, very sensible. Most people start off they might start a rent to rent, they might start off doing beds, HMOs, they might do service accommodation, and then they get a bit fed up with it and they want to pivot. They've got some money and they want to pivot and do something different and they want to step things up a bit. And they're the people I tend to help, to be honest with you. I've got some people who are starting out and have got a bit of money. But I think it's pretty, unless someone's, been very successful in their own business and are confident and have got contacts and got money, it's unrealistic to think someone's going to go from a 3-day course to a mastermind, whatever it is, all these mastermind things, to then start being a relatively big-time property developer. I mean, come on. Does that sound a bit unrealistic to you, Alex?
Well, it does. And I'll tell you why, is because you can go into a course, right? And let's say you're teaching this course and you're teaching this, I'm not saying you do, but you're teaching a 3-day event, how to become a property developer and move into the commercial world from a standing start.
Yes.
You can be the most book smart person in that room, right? And I can sit there and I can listen and I can remember and I can take notes and But if I don't this is my opinion, if I don't have your natural flair, confidence, mindset, go get it, kind of self-belief, wheeler dealer, make deals, have conversations, network, build relationships, and get in those little black books of the agents. It doesn't matter how much notes I've taken and how much I understand the process. You have to have the kind of personality to put with that in order to create the full package. And I know certain trainers that are so, they're so charismatic and they can just create deals because of the way that they talk. So when you put that knowledge with those natural gifts, you get the whole package. But if you can't have a conversation, if you can't shake hands and look someone in the eyes and win them over, doesn't matter how much knowledge you've got, I don't think you're ever going to get to that place. That's just my opinion.
I think you're partly true. I agree. Partly I agree.
Now, you can join venture with someone who can bring that.
Yes, spot on. I'm about to say that. So most people, there aren't many people like out on their own. Most people tend to be in partnership of some sort. So one of them finds the money, the other one's the charismatic one, going out there, finding the deal, doing the deal. What you don't want is two people trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So one of you wants to be doing one thing, one of you wants to be doing the other. On that basis, I think you can do it. Because one might bring the money and some gravitas, and the other might be, more ambitious. The other one's saying, come on, just go steady, which is what you want. You need that yin and yang. You need that partnership. It's like a football manager and the assistant manager. Most of the time, the manager's a bit of a bastard, won't talk to the players and all sorts, which is ridiculous in my view, but someone like that. The assistant manager's put his arms around and say, but he doesn't really think that, you're a great player. He thinks you're great. All this. So you've got that partnership. It is a part. Most people, I would say, are in a partnership of some sort. Because also it's a lonely old game out there on your own. It's a lonely old game. And you can have good days, you can have bad days. My wife says I've got only one talent in life.
Make good eggs.
Which is pretty disappointing considering. And that is dogged determination. Consistency. And I would say being mentally consistent every day, being the same every day, mentally consistent, out there, doing it every day, that's what gets you success. and making it quite clear to every agent you talk to what you want to buy. Because if you say, oh, we buy anything, you'll get nothing. You need to be very clear what you want to do and how you want to do it, and you need to be able to try and look after them by paying them a finder's fee when they find you something, in my view.
So do you have down days? Do you wake up and feel beaten, feel like you want to give up, this deal is not going to happen, mope around the house,
No.
wife gives you a clip around the ear and tells you
No.
to...
I don't have days like that, no.
Interesting.
No. I don't have days like that. And you have days where you're more concerned than other days. Of course, everyone does. But I think keeping your mental health healthy is super important. I know it's very trendy these days, and everyone has to have a badge of some sort. But I think...
Hold that thought, because we're going to talk about that, but I'm just aware of the time. There's too much to cover.
We're nearly finished.
We're nearly finished. I need another 3 hours to go.
We need podcast 2, 3 and 4. Don't we? Come on.
Tell me about this auction house.
Okay, so in 2008, I got a phone call, 2009. I was actually watching a stallion parade in Holland with my wife. She's a top-ish dressage rider. And we're in Holland, and the property market is starting to dip badly. Yep. I got a phone call from Brian Baxter, a good friend of mine, who owns Auction House and also the estate agency in Norwich called Tops at the time. And he says, John, can you lend us 150 grand? I said, well, I might be able to, but why? He said, well, we're in the shit. The auction business wasn't in the shit, but the estate agency was, and it's very hard. With estate agencies, the saying is you're only ever 3 months away from going bankrupt. Because if you sell nothing in 3 months, you're finished, because your overheads stay the same. Our overheads in our estate agency business are 150,000 a month.
What?
150 grand a month to run 5 offices. Now, if you're not selling the business, selling houses, you soon go underwater.
Yeah, that adds up quick.
See, exactly. So I said, well, what's the problem? He said, well, this is the problem, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, I really don't want to, I'd help you if I can, Brian, but really, why don't we buy the business with you? Why don't we, take it on? So I spoke to my partner, who I've worked with for 33 years. He's now retired, accountant. And I said, look, I think we've got a good opportunity here. We just should do something. So he said, okay, well, let's have a look at it. Anyway, long story short, we ended up having to buy the whole business, which was the estate agency and everything. We bought it. The next day we had to make 50 people redundant, close all the business, close all the estate agents. But we were left with Auction House, which was successful. And we grew it from 8 franchises across the UK to 42, 43. We sold it in 2000, our shares in 2019, 2020. I wish we hadn't, but my partner really wanted to start winding down and retiring. Mm-hmm. So that was and we had another partner in the business who sold a business for quite a lot of money, and he bought us out, so it was an easy sale. Yeah. So we did that. I regret selling my shares in it, really, because actually it's a great business, especially in a recession, it's a great business. The next question you're going to ask me, no doubt, is did you make any money out of, did you have 42 auctioneers ringing you every week saying there's a deal? Do you know what? We didn't have any of them ringing us saying that to us, to be honest with you, which I thought originally, great, we're going to find all these deals. We didn't really, I have to say. I'm still good friends with...
Are you able to take deals if you own the auction house?
No, you're not, to be honest with you anyway. You wouldn't really be able to.
Bit of a conflict.
Bit of a conflict. The other thing was, what we did retain was the Fine and Country officer they had. So that's how we ended up with Fine and Country in Norfolk, and we grew it. Wow. It's because it was all part of Auction House, which was part of a company called Tops at the time.
So is Fine and Country a franchise?
So Fine and Country is a national franchise. So we've got the franchise for Norfolk and some are Suffolk. And then other people have got it. It's a hugely successful franchise, Fine and Country is.
It is.
Yeah.
John, just a few more questions.
Yes.
I want to talk about this new development you've got, which is incredible. But before we get there, partners. Yes. Almost impossible, I believe, to do anything of any significance without working with people. But also, there's such a risk there. A lot of people say don't go into business with someone unless you've known them 10 years or their family or their best friend you grew up with. I don't really think that's realistic.
No, I don't.
What's your rules for going into business with people, joint venture, and de-risking that situation?
Okay, so...
Because there's a lot of people getting burnt these days.
A lot of people are getting burnt, and it's absolute madness. And I've helped one or two people unravel what they're owed and so on. They've come to me for help. Okay, so I'm not that well qualified to speak because I've only really ever had 3 backers in my life, and I still work with them now. So I've been very lucky. I have people constantly say to me, John, can I invest in one of your deals? Can I put some money in? No, you can't. I can't think anything worse than having private investors, to be honest with you. The pressure, not everything goes right. Now, if you do need investors, one thing I think is very important is that how you treat them. So you need to treat an investor with great respect. You don't want to end up their best friend. You don't want to end up going on holiday with them or going to dinner parties with them. It's a business transaction. Treat them with respect, be professional, and sign an agreement, a simple agreement. It can be relatively simple. So everyone knows what the score is and what they're doing. Let them come to site once a month. They come to site, make sure you tell the builder first, so the builder's actually on site. That's always a bit of a bonus, I find. Make sure it's clean, tidy. They look round, see what's going on, take them for a coffee or lunch. Thank you very much. See you next month. They deal with the money. In my case, they do all the funding. Not all case these days, but they do the funding, apart from the stuff I do myself. And I deal with the deal. So again, you want to make sure the roles are very clear and you don't start going into each other's roles.
See, here's the scary thing that I would imagine for myself and for probably pretty much everybody listening who's not at your level. Let's say that I found a deal and I already know you. And I come to you and I'm like, John, I found this deal.
People do.
Why don't we
You're
joint
very
venture?
welcome to.
Right. Can you fund my deal? Right.
Yes.
Here's my fear.
Right.
You're probably a lot smarter than me. I know you're going to argue with that.
No, I'm definitely not.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not very smart. He's the smart one, him sitting over there.
Yeah, he looks very intelligent.
He is very smart.
Fair, yeah.
But my fear would be if I sat down with you, you would bamboozle me with numbers, with structure, with tax, with all this kind of stuff. And I'd just sit there like a little puppy dog going, yes, John, yes, John, yes, John. And I'd probably walk out of that room thinking, have I just entered into something that I'm going to get completely screwed on?
Of course, we have this on Property Elevator. You know, I mean, some deals do get done.
It's intimidating, right?
It's Property Elevator is really intimidating to be on there with the lights on you and the cameras and everything. So, but the first thing is likability. It's very important that the person you're working with you like and you respect. Because if you don't like them from day one, my God, you're not going to like them after a year or two when things... And also, you know, not everything's going to go right, so you need someone who understands that if it starts to go wrong, you can both cope with it. And if you are the developer, the person at it every day, and you think there may be a problem, but you're not sure, tell the backer early, because then the backer can get money organised. Don't try and hide it. You know, say, look, there could be a problem. We might have an overrun of 10%. Let them know early. If you don't need it, that's brilliant. But let them know. So don't bury your head in the sand. You know, everyone knows nothing goes right, always goes right. So I like to keep deals very, very simple. Keep it as simple as possible. Normally, I would say if I'm putting money in, I want 10% of my money and I want 50% of the deal or whatever it might be. But we have specific roles, so you know what you're doing. I know, in which case I can sit back and not do much because you're doing it all, which is lovely. I mean, I'm a delegator. I'm not a control freak. I know a few that are, and that's always, to me, that's a bloody nightmare. But, you know, I'm a delegator. And very briefly, with myself and the person I do a number of deals with at the moment, who had a hedge fund, we are actually backing someone up north who's starting doing children's homes. He wants to do children's homes. I've never met him. I'm actually meeting him tomorrow for the first time.
Right.
He's already a load of money off us. I've met on Teams or whatever.
Did your partner have the...
No, the guy came to me and a very inspiring young man who in fact highly qualified to do. I mean, care homes now is very different. They want
a lot of red tape, eh?
Ofsted and God knows what. But, you know, instantly we both thought, yeah, great. Should we do it? Yeah, we do it. Okay, let's do it. And we've got to invest quite a lot of money before you start getting any back because of all the staff got to be in place. It's not for the faint-hearted, to be honest with you. But we've got faith in him. We've met him a couple of times on Teams. He seems a nice guy. What can possibly go wrong? No, but we're sort of meeting. I'm meeting him tomorrow. But what I'm saying is, you know, he's professional, he's likable, he's on the ball, and that's fine.
So what was more important to you in that situation? Was it the fact that he inspires you and his belief in his charisma, or is it the fact that he really knew his numbers?
Both.
You need both.
You need both. You need both because one without the other, it's okay. You know, I've got. You know, a few people I know who have certainly got the charisma and the personality, but I wouldn't do business with them. I'll have a good night out with them, but I wouldn't do business.
You wouldn't
with
do
them.
business
when I've got others that are probably a bit steady, a bit boring, which you would do business with, but you probably wouldn't have a night out with them.
Right.
So, you know, it's horses for courses, isn't it? You know, it's horses for courses, and you know, you need a partner that can't do what you can do. Yeah. Vice versa, really.
Yeah, it's very, very important. Very important that the other person complements your weaknesses.
Yeah.
Or not weaknesses, but lesser
they are
talents.
weaknesses because, I mean, you know, together you should be stronger than if you are apart. So that's the whole point of it. Yeah.
So, John, the wine rack at Ipswich Waterfront, your newest development.
Now, that's the one I finished.
That's the one that you finished?
Yeah, that was 150 flats, 26 million project. We bought it off receivers and got it all completed. We came in on budget and on time. That's unusual.
Right, I'm getting that confused with your newest one, which is...
So the one I announced yesterday was, it's called The Mill, and it's next door to the wine rack.
Right,
I got a phone call in December off the receivers. And they said, John, do you want to have The Mill? I said, I don't know if I want that. I said, it's a major, major challenge.
Your biggest one to date?
Yeah, it is really, yeah. And I said, look, I'm not sure I really want it. So, well, you know, we'd like to have it this and that. Anyway, long story short.
We'd like you to have it.
Yeah, well, that's because no other mug wanted it, basically. So it's no compliment, I can show you. So anyway, so the score is this. There's 215 flats at the rear of the building, which have all been sold, where the residents have had a most terrible time because all the cladding needs to come off and be put back. They all qualify for the levelling up grant from the government, the last government, who, by the way, did a hell of a lot for property. I know they didn't get the planning correct. They couldn't change the planning, but apart from that, Homes England are involved, and Homes England lent me 20 odd million on the last project. So Homes England are the government bank, lend billions of pounds, literally billions of pounds. So they're involved. Levelling up funds involved. My MP at the time, Tom Hunt, who's lost his seat unfortunately, was very heavily involved. Michael Gove was involved. That's the level it was at. So 215 residents whose flats are probably pretty worthless at the moment. Hopefully we can pull it together, get the cladding done, 15, 20 million job. Then at the front, there's a tower which has never been occupied, tallest building in Suffolk. We might need to reduce the height of it, bit of a problem, but we think we can do that, to retain the structural integrity of the building. It's got, on the ground, first 4 floors, it's got a company called Dance East in there. Now, Dance East are renowned throughout the world for their performing arts.
Okay.
So that's another challenge we've got to deal with them. We've got the residents to deal with. It is a very, very challenging project, 30, 40 million quid's worth. So that should keep you busy. And it's local. So, and on the last one, with the wine rack, my wife said to me, she came out of Marks and Spencer's one day, looked up, because you can see it, you know, from everywhere. And that was the wine rack, which is slightly smaller than the mill, and said, I hope you're not going to get this one wrong, darling, because it could be very embarrassing for all the friends, all the people we know in Ipswich. It could be very embarrassing if we get it wrong. If you get it wrong.
If you get it wrong.
Yeah. I went, oh, great, thanks. No
all
pressure.
All of a sudden, the partnership's out the window.
No partnership. No partnership whatsoever. If you get it wrong, it would be very embarrassing for me. I said, oh, great.
There's some pressure there.
That's some pressure, isn't there? So I've done it again. So having done that one, someone said, why do you think you should do this one? I said, not really, no, but we could give it a go.
So when's completion kind of for that? How far ahead are we?
Well, I reckon hopefully
years?
we're on site within a year. I'd like to think so. And then I think it'll take 2 years to do, if it all goes well. But there's a big if.
And you're going to be documenting all this on your
Yeah,
on your
well,
socials?
I think what we might do is a documentary, a 5-episode documentary about it. Because it's quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
A fly on the wall, that sort of thing. You know, we've got the residents to deal with.
Follow the whole process.
The dramas.
Okay.
Bit of fun. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll definitely be watching along.
Thank you.
That sounds
That'll be on my
very,
YouTube.
Very interesting. So as we start to think about wrapping up here, John, I want to hear about your...
We are.
Already. We are.
Right.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
I want to know about your media stuff, because we've got Property Elevator.
Yes.
We've got numerous books that are out there floating around.
Yeah.
So let's start with Property Elevator. Tell us a little bit about what it is, how people can watch it.
Well, what happened with Property Elevator, very briefly, was that I was doing some work with Property TV, a Property Question Time. They said, have you got any ideas for any property shows? And I went, yeah. And then, well, what is it? So I had to quickly think on my feet and think,
No, you didn't have any.
No, not really. A bit like Dragon's Den. It's a bit like Dragon's Den.
Yeah.
Anyway, we mapped it out a bit, and we thought, well, give it a go, shall we? So the first series, the first episode, we had Simon Zushi, myself, Nicholas Warwork, Paul Mahoney, I think, was involved as well. Most of the people I've met through Property TV have been fantastic.
Yeah.
I've met some.
I know all those
people.
names. Yeah.
Yeah, and anyway, so the first series was a bit of a bloody nightmare, and then as we've progressed, it's got better. But I owned the show along with Property TV, so when Ranjan was on it, so when Ranjan says to me, well, of course, you know, I'm one of the stars of the show because I've got 60-odd thousand YouTube followers or whatever he's got. He said, and you're getting sponsorship for it now, so not sure that I think we should all, you know, we should have a share of the sponsorship or something, because they paid me to be on the show to start with. They all paid me to be on. So I said, well, look, I'm not going to have any messing around here. I'll tell you what I'll do. So I bought the half off Property TV, bought it, and then I've sold them the shares. So everyone's equal. There's no arguments, much. And as the years have gone by, you know, we got Roma Finance sponsoring the last series, which enabled us to hire the old Dragon's Den studios and improve what we're doing.
I've got Paul booked on here. I didn't know you were so close.
Paul Mahoney?
Yep.
Oh yeah, great. He's the son I never had. He's the son. I'd tell him that. So John says you're the son he never had. Yeah, I mean, Paul's incredibly successful, bright guy, not just a property man, he's an entrepreneur. I mean, I'm just a one-trick pony, but I mean, he is a true property entrepreneur. He's a true business entrepreneur. Yeah, I'm very, very fond of Paul, got a lot of time for him.
So where can people watch it?
They can watch it on my YouTube. It's been on Sky 186. It'll be back on there soon, I'm sure. The last series has just finished. Series 7. Can't believe we're talking about Series 8.
Wow.
And we haven't fallen out or anything.
So it's basically Dragon's Den for property.
Yeah, so basically people come on with a deal and pitch it to us, and we decide whether or not one of us or all of us wants to do it. And how we compete against each other is by saying, well, I'll give you 50% of the deal, I'll fund it, I'll give 50% of the deal. And then Paul might say, well, I really like it, and I'm younger and better looking than John, I'll give you 60% of the deal or whatever. And that's how it gets broken down. And you might say, well, you both want to do it, okay, I'll do it with both of you. Now, of course, not many of the deals get done in the end because the due diligence you have to do, it's like Dragon's Den.
That's always what people are wondering at home.
Some do get done, but a lot don't. But it's educational as well. So a lot of people like the fact that, you know, we're not just, you know, we're giving a lot of information away to these people, and they like being on TV, and of course they're meeting us, and then we have content. We do business with them afterwards, maybe, or whatever it might be.
Relationships.
So, yeah, absolutely. It's all about relationships. Yeah.
Sounds amazing.
Good fun.
Tell us a little bit about your books that you've got.
So I've got 4 books published, and I've got a 5th one on commercial property being published next month.
Okay.
So we start with buying and selling for sort of newcomers, and we've got advanced property developing and investing. We've got auctions, of course, because I've been buying and selling at auction for a long time and owned auction house. Then we've got a book called Move Right, which is a book for not just first-time buyers, but people who are looking to move, to do it in the correct way, to avoid stress and worry, because as we know, moving house is the second most stressful thing after
Getting
divorce.
married.
You're very positive. Positive. No, divorce.
Sorry, divorce.
After divorce,
Okay.
Alex. So, of course, some people are selling because they are divorced, so it's even worse. So, but it's very important when whether you're doing a property deal or actually buying a home to live in or selling a home, you do it in the correct way. Because if you don't, you're going to give yourself loads of hassle and grief you don't need to do. So if you do it correctly, in a smart way, it can reduce a lot of stress, a lot of worry, and you can make more money.
John, how can people... I'll be honest with you. I don't want you to get too emotional or slushy here.
No.
But you put off a really nice vibe. Like, you're
Thank
someone
you.
that I would... Very genuine, very ethical. I feel like you're not going to try and sell me any bullshit if I was going to come and learn from you, which may well happen.
No upsell, by the way.
No upsell.
No upsell.
And there's a lot of snakes in this business, right, that are selling a lot of snake oil.
Yeah.
How can people, because I do think people are going to listen to this and think he sounds like a really nice, genuine guy that's very, you play yourself down a lot, but you've done some incredible things.
I speak as I find it. I can afford, if you like, I can afford to not tell the truth is the wrong thing, but because we all want to tell the truth. But I can be bold about my statements on the basis that I can back them up, and I'm not desperate to sell anything, if you get my meaning.
Yeah.
So
you don't need to.
No.
Yeah. And this is what I said to you. You're one of the few people that's, you do some training, you do a lot of speaking, but 90% of you're on the ground doing it.
And by the way, I fell into it by writing my first book because I didn't like the advice I was hearing people were getting. So I wrote a book about it. And that's how really I got into the property TV, and it's had led to other things. And it's given me a new lease of life, and I've really enjoyed this morning. I enjoy speaking to like-minded people and having some fun with it. And I've met some great people, and I enjoy working with them, Ranjan and others nicer than Ranjan, like Haley.
Yeah.
So
Haley's very nice.
Haley's very nice. So it's great, and I'm enjoying myself.
So outside of obviously gorging all of your books and watching property,
if you buy them on my
repeat,
website, Amazon takes 60%. So if people want to go to johnhowardproperty.com and buy them on the website, that's great. And they can also see when my next seminar. I do 4 seminars a year, and the next one's I think towards the end of January, or the end of September in Canary Wharf.
So people can come and watch you speak.
Yep.
Potentially, you do any kind of mentorship training?
I do a little bit of mentorship. I've got a few people. I don't do loads of it because I'm busy doing my own stuff.
Yep.
I've got an ex-footballer. I've got an ex-school head teacher. Of all sorts. So it's great fun, and I enjoy meeting them and helping them. Yeah.
Okay. So, John, one last question, if you don't mind being a little bit honest, a little bit vulnerable with it. I'm pretty sure, well, I pretty much know how you're going to answer this question because of the way you come across on the podcast. But coming back to the mental health thing, very passionate about that. I've had my own struggles with mental health. I think a lot of people have. Maybe they're not very vocal about it, but with social media these days, always comparing yourself, always looking at what other people are doing, always feeling like you're inadequate, not doing enough, not working hard enough, not making enough money, comparing. And a lot of people, I always say, look at this show, listen to the show, look at you. John's got it all figured out. It's got a nice car, all these big developments, made all this money. How are you day to day? Have you had any issues in the past? Do you have any wobbles now? Do you ever have any anxiety? Do you ever have any sad moments? Do you ever feel like, I just can't do this? I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not brave enough. How are you day to day?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Oh, bloody hell.
I don't recognise any of those things particularly. And I'm not saying, I don't want to sound arrogant by saying that. I know people do, and I've got people in my family who struggle a little bit as well. So I'm not suggesting that at all. What I would say is you have to, I naturally look after my mental health without thinking about it. I've got a dog, I walk, I do this, I do that, I play tennis, I do cycle. I do lots of things that actually I do naturally, and I realise now that they're the things that keep me balanced and everything else. So I think it's important that people, like you said, if they do have an issue, it's important that they talk about it and they bring it out in the open. In the old days, they never did. Let's be honest, they never did. I do think that a lot of people want to have a badge, and I think there's a lot of people that just need to get on with it.
Yeah.
But there's others that clearly it's a serious problem, and I think the problem is with social media. One thing I do is to switch my phone off at 7 o'clock every night. That's good advice.
Get that space.
Switch it off at 7 o'clock. Otherwise, I have email after email.
Yeah.
Switch it off.
I've seen your phone over there. It's flashed about 8 million times.
And if I go out for dinner, I don't take it.
Yeah.
The only time I keep my phone on is if I'm in a hotel in the evening or something. But if I'm at home, I switch it off. And honestly, that is the best advice I can give everyone today. Everything I've said, switch that bloody phone off at 7 o'clock at night. You will feel freer, you'll feel more relaxed, and you'll be ready to switch it on at 7 in the morning.
Yeah. Amazing advice. So important. I'm going to take that on board because I've always got that bloody thing glued to me. Yeah, worried about missing a call, worried about missing this. You know what? It's not going to change your life.
If they haven't phoned you before 7 o'clock, it can wait. And I'm a deal junkie.
Yeah.
So if it can wait till 7 in the morning.
Yeah. John, great advice. I say this a lot, but I genuinely mean it. I'd love to sit here and chat for another hour because you are...
Well, I'm very happy to come back anytime you want.
You are a really, really nice guy and so much wisdom, so much knowledge. I love the fact that, you're a little bit more old school. You tell the truth about how it is and, it's really refreshing. And it's been an absolute honour and privilege to have you on the show. Thanks so much for giving us your time. And I'm sure everybody at home really, really loved that episode. We're going to put all your information in the show notes.
Thank you.
How they can get hold of you, your website, all of John's socials are going to be there. Yeah. So if you're inspired by what you heard today from John and everything that he's got going on with all of his developments and everything else, reach out to John. All of his info is in the show notes. John, it's been an absolute pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Super to meet you.
Thank you
very
so much, mate. And thank you for everybody for listening at home. Until next week, we'll see you then for another episode of the Airbnb Nomads podcast. Until then, thank you. Take care.